Dr. Evelyn Harper was known for her calm demeanor and steady hands. She worked at St. Mary's Hospital, a place where hope often collided with despair. Every day she walked through the hospital corridors dressed in her crisp white coat, carrying an aura of quiet confidence that reassured both parents and children alike. To most people, she was just another doctor, a stranger whose name they might forget after their visit ended. But to those who knew her work, Dr. Harper was nothing short of extraordinary. Evelyn had always been drawn to helping others. Growing up as an only child in a small town, she'd spent countless hours watching her mother care for neighbors during times of need. Her mother wasn't a doctor, but she possessed a rare gift, the ability to make anyone feel seen and valued. That same warmth lived within Evelyn now, though she rarely let it show outside the operating room. Over time, she'd built walls around her heart, not out of coldness but out of necessity. Being a pediatric surgeon meant facing loss more often than victory, and letting emotions take over could cloud judgment. On this particular morning, Evelyn arrived at the hospital earlier than usual. Outside, the sun was still rising, casting soft golden light over the city streets. Inside, the halls were quiet except for the occasional hum of machines or hurried footsteps from night shift nurses finishing their rounds. As she entered her office, she glanced at the stack of patient files waiting on her desk. One name stood out among them: Lily Anderson, age 6. Lily's file told a heartbreaking story. A car accident months ago had left her partially paralyzed, requiring multiple surgeries to regain mobility in her arms and legs. Today's procedure would focus on repairing nerve damage in her right hand, a delicate operation with no guarantees of success. Evelyn sighed deeply as she reviewed the details. It wasn't the complexity of the surgery that weighed on her mind. It was the thought of facing Lily herself. Children like Lily reminded Evelyn too much of what she'd lost long ago, her own dreams of motherhood, buried beneath years of sacrifice and responsibility. By mid-morning, Evelyn made her way to the pre-op area. Nurses bustled about, preparing patients for their respective procedures. Through the chaos, Evelyn spotted Lily sitting upright in her bed, clutching a stuffed bunny tightly against her chest. Her curly brown hair framed a face full of innocence and curiosity. Despite everything she'd endured, there was something undeniably radiant about her, a spark that refused to be extinguished. "Good morning, Lily," Evelyn said softly, stepping closer to the bedside. "I'm Dr. Harper. I'll be taking care of you today." Lily looked up, her wide eyes scanning Evelyn's face before dropping to her hands. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, with surprising boldness, Lily asked, "Do you think you can fix my hand?" Evelyn hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I'll do my very best," she replied, offering a reassuring smile. "But remember, bravery is half the battle. And I already see how brave you are." Lily nodded slowly, seemingly satisfied with the answer. Yet as Evelyn turned to leave, she felt the weight of Lily's gaze lingering on her back. Something about the girl unsettled her, not in a bad way, but in a way that stirred memories she'd tried so hard to bury. As Evelyn scrubbed in for surgery later that afternoon, her thoughts drifted back to Lily. There was something familiar about the child's hopeful expression, something that tugged at the edges of Evelyn's memory. Perhaps it was the way Lily clung to her bunny, or maybe it was the quiet strength she carried despite her pain. Whatever it was, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that this case would change her life in ways she couldn't yet understand. Little did she know, Lily was about to say something that would pierce straight through the walls Evelyn had built around her heart, and force her to confront emotions she'd kept hidden for far too long. The operating room was a place of precision and silence, save for the rhythmic beeping of monitors and the occasional murmured instruction between medical staff. Dr. Evelyn Harper stood at the center of it all, her hands steady as she prepared to begin Lily's surgery. Years of practice had taught her how to compartmentalize, how to focus solely on the task before her without letting emotions interfere. But today, something felt different. As she glanced at Lily's small hand resting on the surgical table, bandaged and fragile, a pang of unease rippled through her chest. Evelyn shook off the feeling quickly, Emotions had no place here, they never did. With a deep breath, she slipped into her familiar rhythm, her movements fluid and deliberate. Hours passed in what felt like minutes as she worked tirelessly to repair the damaged nerves in Lily's hand. Each stitch required absolute concentration, each decision carrying immense weight. By the time the surgery concluded, Evelyn allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. The procedure had gone better than expected, a rare victory in a field where success often came with caveats. When Evelyn stepped out of the OR, she was greeted by one of the nurses who handed her an update form. "Lily is stable," the nurse said with a smile. "Her vitals are strong and she's waking up now." Relieved but exhausted, Evelyn nodded. She knew this was just the beginning of Lily's recovery journey, but for now she could take solace in knowing that she'd done everything possible to give the little girl a chance at regaining function in her hand. Still, something lingered, in the back of her mind, a nagging curiosity about Lily herself. Why did the child feel so familiar? Why did her presence stir memories Evelyn had long buried? Later that evening, Evelyn decided to check on Lily personally. Hospital protocol didn't require her to do so, not after such a successful surgery, but she couldn't shake the pull toward the young patient. When she entered Lily's room, she found the girl sitting up in bed, wide awake and staring out the window at the fading sunlight. Her stuffed bunny lay beside her, its button eyes glinting faintly in the dim light. "Hi, Lily," Evelyn said gently, closing the door behind her. "How are you feeling?" Lily turned her head slowly, her gaze locking onto Evelyn's face. For a moment she didn't respond, simply studying the doctor with an intensity that caught Evelyn off guard. Then, almost shyly, she whispered, "Thank you." Evelyn smiled softly, pulling up a chair beside the bed. "You're welcome, sweetheart. But remember, your body still has some healing to do. You'll need to keep working hard." "I know," Lily replied, her voice barely audible. She hesitated, then added, "My mommy says I'm brave." At the mention of her mother, Evelyn's throat tightened unexpectedly. She cleared it lightly before responding. "Your mommy is right. You are brave." Lily tilted her head, her expression thoughtful. "Do you have kids, Dr. Harper?" The question hit Evelyn like a wave crashing against a rocky shore. It wasn't uncommon for patients to ask personal questions, but this one struck a nerve she hadn't anticipated. She forced a neutral smile. "No, I don't." "Oh," Lily said simply, her tone neither judgmental nor disappointed. After a pause, she reached out with her uninjured left hand, pointing toward Evelyn's own hands. "Your hands are really nice." Evelyn blinked, caught off guard once again. "Nice," she repeated, looking down at her hands. They were ordinary hands, slightly calloused from years of work, with faint scars from past surgeries. Nothing remarkable about them. "They look like my mommy's hands," Lily explained matter-of-factly. "She used to hold me when I cried, and when we played together, her hands always made me feel safe." A lump formed in Evelyn's throat. She wanted to change the subject, to steer the conversation away from topics that made her uncomfortable. But before she could respond, Lily continued, her voice tinged with wonder. "You saved my hand today. Maybe you can be my new mom." The words hung in the air like a fragile thread, connecting two souls in ways neither fully understood. Evelyn froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She opened her mouth to speak but found no words. How could she explain to a 6-year-old that life and love weren't as simple as they seemed? That being someone's mom meant more than fixing broken things. Instead, she reached out tentatively, placing her hand over Lily's tiny one. "I may not be your mom, Lily," she said softly, "but I promise to take care of you while you're here. Does that sound okay?" Lily considered this for a moment, then nodded. "Okay." As Evelyn sat there, holding Lily's hand, she realized the walls she'd built around her heart weren't as impenetrable as she'd thought. This little girl, with her unfiltered honesty and boundless hope, had already started chipping away at them. And though Evelyn didn't yet understand why, she couldn't deny the warmth spreading through her chest, a feeling she hadn't experienced in years. For the first time in a long time, Evelyn wondered if maybe, just maybe, she wasn't meant to carry the weight of the world alone. The days that followed Lily's surgery passed in a blur for Dr. Evelyn Harper. Between rounds, consultations, and surgeries, she found herself stealing moments to check on Lily whenever possible. It wasn't part of her routine. She rarely visited patients outside of post-operative care. But something about the little girl kept drawing her back. Each visit left Evelyn with more questions than answers, not just about Lily, but also about herself. One afternoon, as Evelyn walked into Lily's room carrying a clipboard, she noticed the child sitting cross-legged on her bed coloring in a picture book. Her right hand, still bandaged, rested gently on her lap, while her left moved carefully across the page. The sight filled Evelyn with a mix of pride and sorrow. Pride because Lily was already showing signs of resilience. Sorrow because every stroke of the crayon reminded Evelyn of how much work lay ahead for the young girl. "Hi, Dr. Harper." Lily greeted her cheerfully, holding up her drawing. "Look what I made." Evelyn set the clipboard aside and approached the bed. The picture showed a stick-figure family standing under a bright yellow sun. There was a tall figure labeled Mommy, a smaller one labeled Me, and another labeled simply Friend. Evelyn's eyes lingered on the word friend, wondering silently if it referred to her. "It's beautiful, Lily," Evelyn said warmly, offering an encouraging smile. "You're very talented." Lily beamed at the compliment, then tilted her head thoughtfully. "Dr. Harper, can I ask you something?" "Of course," Evelyn replied, pulling up a chair. "Why don't you have kids?" Lily asked innocently, her big brown eyes searching Evelyn's face for an answer. Evelyn hesitated, caught off guard by the directness of the question. She had spent years deflecting such inquiries from colleagues, friends, and even family members. But coming from Lily, it felt different, less intrusive and more curious, like a child trying to piece together a puzzle. "I guess. Life just took me in a different direction," Evelyn finally said, choosing her words carefully. "Being a doctor means taking care of lots of people, and sometimes there isn't enough time for everything else. But don't you ever get lonely?" Lily pressed, her voice tinged with genuine concern. Loneliness. The word struck Evelyn like a sharp gust of wind, stirring memories she'd long tried to suppress. She thought about the evenings she spent alone in her apartment, surrounded by medical journals and half-finished cups of coffee. About the holidays when she declined invitations to gatherings, claiming she was too busy working, and about the nights when she stared at the ceiling, wondering if she'd made the right choices. "I manage," Evelyn said softly, avoiding Lily's gaze. "It's not always easy, but I've learned to cope." Lily frowned, clearly unsatisfied with the response. "I think everyone needs someone," she declared firmly. "Even superheroes need sidekicks," Evelyn chuckled despite herself. "Is that what I am? A superhero?" "Well..." Lily tapped her chin dramatically, pretending to consider the idea. "You did save my hand, so yeah, pretty much." For the first time in years, Evelyn laughed, a real heartfelt laugh that echoed through the quiet hospital room. It startled her almost as much as it did Lily, who giggled in response. In that moment, the heaviness inside Evelyn seemed to lift, if only briefly. As their laughter subsided, Evelyn glanced at the clock on the wall. Visiting hours were almost over, and she needed to return to her duties. Reluctantly, she stood up and smoothed her coat. "I should go," she said, though her tone betrayed her reluctance. "But I'll come back tomorrow, okay? Promise?" Lily asked, clutching her bunny tightly. "I promise," Evelyn replied, surprised by how natural the words felt. Later that night, as Evelyn sat alone in her office reviewing patient files, her mind drifted back to Lily's question. Why hadn't she pursued motherhood? Was it truly because of her demanding career, or was there something deeper holding her back? She thought about her own childhood, the warmth of her mother's embrace, the sound of laughter filling their small home. Those memories were bittersweet now, shadowed by the loss of her parents years ago. After their passing, Evelyn had thrown herself into her studies, determined to build a life where she could make a difference. But somewhere along the way, she'd convinced herself that personal happiness was secondary to professional success. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Startled, she looked up to see one of the hospital social workers, Mrs. Thompson, standing in the doorway. "Dr. Harper, do you have a moment?" Mrs. Thompson asked kindly. "Of course," Evelyn replied, gesturing for her to enter. "What is it?" Mrs. Thompson hesitated before speaking. "It's about Lily Anderson. I wanted to discuss her case with you, specifically her living arrangements after discharge." Evelyn frowned, setting down her pen. "Living arrangements? What do you mean?" "Well," Mrs. Thompson began cautiously, "Lily doesn't have any immediate family left. Her mother passed away in the accident, and there are no other relatives able or willing to take her in. We're exploring foster care options, but—" The sentence trailed off, leaving an uncomfortable silence. In its wake, Evelyn felt a knot form in her stomach. Foster care. The phrase carried weight, conjuring images of uncertainty and instability. Could Lily really endure more hardship after everything she'd already been through? And what happens if no suitable placement is found? Evelyn asked quietly. Mrs. Thompson sighed. Then she'll likely remain in state custody until a permanent solution is arranged. It's not ideal, especially for a child like Lily. Evelyn stared at the file on her desk, her mind racing. She couldn't bear the thought of Lily being shuffled between strangers, her future hanging in limbo. Yet what could she possibly do? Taking responsibility for a child was a commitment she'd never considered, not until now. As Mrs. Thompson excused herself and left the room, Evelyn leaned back in her chair, overwhelmed by conflicting emotions. For years, she'd believed she wasn't cut out for motherhood, but now, faced with the reality of Lily's situation, she couldn't ignore the growing sense of responsibility tugging at her heart. Perhaps, she realized, life had a way of steering us toward paths we never intended to take. And maybe, just maybe, this was hers. The next morning, Dr. Evelyn Harper arrived at the hospital earlier than usual. The sky outside was overcast, gray clouds hanging low as if mirroring the heaviness in her chest. She had barely slept the night before, her mind consumed by Mrs. Thompson's words about Lily's uncertain future. Foster care, state custody. These phrases echoed in her thoughts like a haunting melody she couldn't silence. As she walked through the quiet corridors toward Lily's room, Evelyn tried to push aside the storm brewing inside her. She reminded herself that she was a doctor, not a guardian, and that her role ended once patients were discharged. But no matter how many times she repeated this mantra, it failed to ease the growing ache in her heart. When Evelyn entered Lily's room, she found the little girl sitting up in bed, staring out the window at the rain-soaked cityscape. Her stuffed bunny lay beside her, its fur slightly damp from being hugged too tightly during the night. Sensing Evelyn's presence, Lily turned and smiled brightly. "Good morning, Dr. Harper," she exclaimed, her voice carrying an infectious optimism that contrasted sharply with the gloomy weather. "Good morning, Lily," Evelyn replied, forcing a smile despite her inner turmoil. "How are you feeling today?" "Better," Lily said, enthusiastically, holding up her bandaged right hand. "I think it's getting stronger already." Evelyn nodded approvingly, though her attention was only partially focused on Lily's progress. Instead, her gaze kept drifting to the drawing, still lying on the bedside table, the one of the stick figure family under the sun. The word friend stood out starkly against the colorful backdrop, a reminder of how much Lily craved connection. After checking Lily's vitals and ensuring everything was on track, Evelyn hesitated before speaking. "Lily, can I ask you something?" "Sure," Lily replied, her eyes lighting up with curiosity. What do you think about when you imagine your future?" Evelyn asked carefully, choosing her words with precision. "Do you ever picture where you'll live or who will take care of you?" Lily tilted her head thoughtfully, considering the question. "I don't know," she admitted after a moment. "Sometimes I dream about living in a house with lots of windows so I can see the stars at night. and I want someone to read me stories before bed like my mommy used to do." Her simple answer struck Evelyn deeply. It wasn't extravagant or unrealistic, just a child's longing for love, stability, and comfort. Yet knowing that Lily might not have any of those things made Evelyn's heart ache even more. "And what about friends?" Evelyn prompted gently. "Do you think you'll make new ones?" "Yes," Lily said confidently, "but I already have one. You." Evelyn froze, her breath catching in her throat. She had known Lily was fond of her, but hearing those words spoken aloud sent a jolt of emotion coursing through her veins. For years, she had convinced herself that forming attachments beyond professional boundaries was dangerous. It opened doors to pain and loss. But now, faced with Lily's unwavering trust, she began to question whether avoiding connection came at too great a cost. That evening, after finishing her rounds, Evelyn found herself lingering in the hospital cafeteria, staring blankly at a cup of lukewarm coffee. Her mind replayed every interaction she'd had with Lily, each memory amplifying the weight of the decision looming ahead. Could she really step into the role of a mother? Was she ready to open her heart to the joys and risks that came with such a commitment? Just then, Mrs. Thompson approached her table, holding a folder filled with papers. "Dr. Harper, may I join you?" she asked kindly. Evelyn gestured for her to sit, bracing herself for whatever news the social worker might share. "I wanted to update you on Lily's case," Mrs. Thompson began, placing the folder on the table. "We've identified a potential foster family, but there are some concerns. They're willing to take her temporarily, but long-term placement is uncertain." Evelyn frowned, her stomach sinking. "What happens if they decide not to keep her?" Mrs. Thompson sighed heavily. "Then we start the process all over again. Unfortunately, children like Lily often face multiple transitions before finding a permanent home. It's hard on them emotionally." The image of Lily being shuffled between strangers filled Evelyn with dread. She imagined the little girl, clutching her bunny for comfort, searching for stability in a world that seemed determined to deny her peace. The thought was unbearable. "I need to think about something," Evelyn said suddenly, surprising even herself. "Can I get back to you tomorrow?" Mrs. Thompson looked taken aback, but nodded. "Of course. Take your time." Later that night, as Evelyn sat alone in her apartment, she stared at an old photograph on her bookshelf. It showed her as a child, standing between her parents, their arms wrapped protectively around her. Her mother's hands rested on her shoulders, a gesture of love and reassurance she remembered vividly. For the first time in years, Evelyn allowed herself to dream. What if she could give Lily the same sense of security she'd once taken for granted? What if she could be the person Lily needed, not just as a doctor, but as a mother? The idea terrified her. It meant stepping into uncharted territory, abandoning the safe confines of her structured life. But deep down, Evelyn knew one thing for certain. She couldn't let Lily face the world alone. Perhaps she realized becoming a mother wasn't about having all the answers. Maybe it was simply about saying yes when a child needed someone to hold their hand. The next morning, Evelyn woke up with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. The decision she had wrestled with throughout the night was still daunting, but it no longer felt impossible. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine what life might look like if she opened her heart and her home to Lily. It wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, adjustments, and sacrifices. But as she stood in front of the mirror brushing her hair, she realized something important. Love wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up, even when you weren't sure how. When Evelyn arrived at the hospital later that day, she made a point to visit Mrs. Thompson before seeing any patients. The social worker greeted her warmly, though her expression betrayed a hint of curiosity. "Dr. Harper," Mrs. Thompson began, "I didn't expect to see you so early. Have you thought more about Lily's case?" Evelyn took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Yes, I have, and I'd like to explore the possibility of becoming Lily's foster parent." Mrs. Thompson blinked, clearly caught off guard. "Are you certain? This is a significant responsibility, especially for someone in your position. I understand that, Evelyn replied firmly. But I also know Lily deserves stability and care, things I can provide. I may not have planned this path, but I believe it's the right one. Mrs. Thompson studied her for a moment, her gaze softening. If you're serious, we'll need to start the evaluation process immediately. It involves background checks, home inspections, and interviews. Are you prepared for that? Yes, Evelyn said without hesitation. Whatever it takes. As they discussed the steps ahead, Evelyn felt a mix of excitement and anxiety bubbling within her. She knew the road wouldn't be smooth, but the thought of giving Lily a safe place to call home filled her with determination. Later that afternoon, Evelyn knocked gently on Lily's hospital door before stepping inside. The little girl was sitting cross-legged on her bed again, this time flipping through a picture book. Her face lit up when she saw Evelyn enter. "Hi, Dr. Harper," Lily chirped happily. "What are you doing here?" Evelyn smiled, pulling up a chair beside the bed. "I came to talk to you about something important." Lily closed her book and leaned forward eagerly. "What is it?" "Well," Evelyn hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "You know how I told you I don't have kids of my own?" Lily nodded solemnly. "Yes. What if I said I might want to change that? To give someone a forever home where they feel loved and safe?" Lily's eyes widened with surprise. "Do you mean me?" Evelyn reached out and placed a gentle hand over Lily's. "Yes, I mean you. If you're okay with it, I'd like to try being your new mom." For a moment, Lily simply stared at her, her expression unreadable. Then slowly, a smile spread across her face, a radiant, glowing smile that seemed to light up the entire room. "Really?" she whispered, tears welling up in her big brown eyes. "Really," Evelyn confirmed, her voice steady despite the lump forming in her throat. "But it won't happen right away. We'll need to go through some steps to make sure everything works out properly. Does that sound okay to you?" Lily nodded vigorously, clutching her bunny tightly. "It sounds perfect." Over the next few weeks, Evelyn threw herself into the foster care application process with the same dedication she brought to her medical work. She attended meetings, answered countless questions, and prepared her apartment for inspection. Every step felt like a leap of faith, but each challenge only strengthened her resolve. Meanwhile, Lily became increasingly excited about the prospect of leaving the hospital and starting a new chapter. During Evelyn's visits, she peppered the doctor with questions about what their life together might look like. "Will I have my own room?" Lily asked one day, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. "Of course," Evelyn replied, smiling. "And we'll decorate it however you like." "And will you read me bedtime stories?" Lily pressed, her voice hopeful. "Every night," Evelyn promised. One evening, as Evelyn sat on her couch reviewing paperwork, her phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Thompson. The message was brief but impactful. "Home inspection complete. Everything looks good. Next step, court approval." Tears pricked Evelyn's eyes as she read the words. They were closer than ever to making this dream a reality, for both of them. On the day of the court hearing, Evelyn dressed in her most professional attire, determined to present herself as a capable and loving guardian. As she sat in the courtroom waiting for the judge's decision, her hands trembled slightly. Beside her, Lily held onto her hand tightly, her small fingers offering silent reassurance. When the judge finally spoke, his voice carried a tone of warmth and approval. "Based on the evidence presented, I see no reason why Dr. Harper cannot provide a stable and nurturing environment for Lily Anderson. Custody is granted." A wave of relief washed over Evelyn as she turned to Lily, who was grinning ear to ear. "We did it," Evelyn whispered, pulling the little girl into a tight embrace. For the first time in years, Evelyn felt whole. She had stepped into the unknown, guided by nothing more than hope and love. And as she walked out of the courthouse with Lily by her side, she knew this was just the beginning of their journey together. The first few weeks of Evelyn and Lily's life together were a whirlwind of adjustments, laughter, and quiet moments. of discovery. Evelyn's apartment, once a sanctuary of solitude, now buzzed with the energy of a 6-year-old girl who viewed every corner as an opportunity for adventure. From unpacking boxes of toys to rearranging furniture to make space for Lily's drawings, Evelyn found herself embracing changes she never thought possible. On their first night in the new home, Evelyn tucked Lily into bed after reading her favorite bedtime story, a tale about a brave little bird learning to fly. As she turned off the lamp, casting the room into a soft glow from the nightlight, Lily reached out and grabbed her hand. "Dr. Harper?" she whispered sleepily. "Yes, sweetheart?" Evelyn replied, kneeling beside the bed. "Can I call you Mom now?" Lily asked, her voice barely audible. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. She had known this moment would come eventually, but hearing the word spoken aloud made it feel real in a way she hadn't anticipated. Her heart swelled with emotion as she nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I'd like that very much," she said softly. "Good night, my sweet girl." "Good night, Mom," Lily murmured before drifting off to sleep, a contented smile on her face. As days turned into weeks, Evelyn discovered that motherhood was both harder and more rewarding than she'd imagined. Mornings began with cereal spills and mismatched socks, while evenings often involved helping Lily practice using her recovering hand. Progress was slow but steady, and each small victory, whether it was tying shoelaces or holding a crayon properly, was celebrated with cheers and hugs. One Saturday morning, Evelyn decided to take Lily to the park. It was a crisp autumn day, the air filled with the scent of fallen leaves and the sound of children laughing. For Evelyn, who had spent most of her adult life surrounded by sterile hospital walls, the vibrant chaos of the outdoors felt almost foreign. Yet watching Lily run ahead, her curls bouncing as she chased pigeons, brought an unexpected sense of joy. "Mom, look at me," Lily called out, spinning in circles until she collapsed onto the grass, giggling uncontrollably. Evelyn smiled, shaking her head. "You're going to make yourself dizzy, silly." "But it's fun," Lily insisted, grabbing Evelyn's hand and pulling her down to sit beside her. "Come on, you try." For a moment, Evelyn hesitated. This wasn't part of her usual routine. Spontaneous silliness wasn't exactly her forte. But looking into Lily's hopeful eyes, she realized that sometimes letting go was just as important as holding on. With a playful grin, she joined Lily in spinning around until they both fell back onto the grass, laughing until their sides hurt. In that moment, Evelyn felt something she hadn't experienced in years: pure, unfiltered happiness. It wasn't the kind of satisfaction that came from performing a successful surgery or receiving professional accolades. This was deeper, richer, a connection rooted in love and shared experiences. Later that evening, as they sat together at the kitchen table coloring pictures, Lily suddenly stopped and looked up at Evelyn. "Do you think my mommy would be happy for us?" she asked quietly, her brow furrowed with concern. Evelyn set down her crayon, her heart aching at the question. "I think your mommy would be so proud of you," she said gently. "She gave you strength, courage, and a big heart, and those things will always stay with you, just like how she'll always be a part of you." Lily nodded slowly, seeming to find comfort in Evelyn's words. "And you're my mom now," she added with a shy smile. "So I have 2 moms." Evelyn's chest tightened with emotion. "Yes, sweetheart, you do." Despite the joy they shared, there were challenges too. Adjusting to life outside the hospital meant Evelyn had less time for work-related responsibilities, forcing her to delegate tasks and rely on colleagues more than ever before. At first, this shift felt uncomfortable. It went against years of self-reliance, but over time she learned to trust others and prioritize what truly mattered. One evening, after tucking Lily into bed, Evelyn sat alone in the living room reflecting on the changes in her life. The walls she had built around her heart were still there, but cracks had begun to form, allowing light to seep through. She realized that becoming a mother hadn't erased her fears or doubts. Instead, it had given her a reason to face them head-on. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a text from Mrs. Thompson. "How are things going? Need anything?" Evelyn typed a quick reply. "We're doing great. Thanks for checking in." As she set the phone aside, she glanced at the framed photo of her parents on the bookshelf. For so long, she had carried their memory as a source of comfort, but also as a reminder of loss. Now, however, she saw something different, a legacy of love passed down through generations. And in Lily, she recognized a new chapter, not just for herself, but for the family she was building. Though the journey ahead promised ups and downs, Evelyn knew one thing for certain: she was no longer walking it alone. With Lily by her side, she had found not only purpose but also a second chance at happiness. Months passed, and the bond between Evelyn and Lily grew stronger with each passing day. What had started as a tentative arrangement, born out of necessity and compassion, had blossomed into something profound: a family. Evelyn no longer thought of herself as simply Dr. Harper, the dedicated surgeon who lived for her work. Now, she was Mom, a title that carried responsibilities, sacrifices, and joys beyond anything she could have imagined. One crisp winter morning, Evelyn woke up to find Lily already dressed and waiting by the window, her nose pressed against the glass of snowflakes drifted lazily from the sky. "Mom, it's snowing," Lily exclaimed, turning to Evelyn with wide-eyed excitement. "Can we go outside?" Evelyn chuckled, pulling on her robe. "Not until you eat breakfast, young lady." "But pancakes can wait," Lily protested, bouncing on her toes. "Snow doesn't." "Snow will still be there after breakfast," Evelyn replied firmly, though her tone was warm. "Now come sit down before I turn into the Grinch." Lily giggled at the joke, scampering to the table where Evelyn had set out plates of fluffy pancakes and steaming hot cocoa. As they ate together, Evelyn marveled at how effortlessly Lily had woven herself into her life. The quiet mornings once spent reading medical journals were now filled with chatter about school projects, favorite cartoons, and dreams of building the biggest snowman in the neighborhood. After breakfast, Evelyn bundled Lily up in her coat, scarf, and mittens, a task made slightly more challenging by Lily's insistence on doing some things herself. Her right hand, though still healing, had improved significantly thanks to months of physical therapy. Watching her daughter struggle but persevere brought tears to Evelyn's eyes every time. Once outside, Lily wasted no time diving into the snow, creating tiny footprints across the yard. She rolled balls of snow, stacking them clumsily to form what she declared the world's tallest snowman. Evelyn joined in, packing snow around the base and helping secure sticks for arms. "This is perfect," Lily declared proudly, stepping back to admire their creation. Then, with a mischievous grin, she scooped up a handful of snow and tossed it at Evelyn. "Oh, it's on now," Evelyn laughed, grabbing her own handful of snow. For the next 20 minutes, they chased each other through the yard, laughter echoing in the frosty air. By the time they returned inside, cheeks rosy and clothes damp, Evelyn felt lighter than she had in years. Later that evening, as they sat together by the fireplace sipping hot chocolate, Evelyn noticed Lily clutching her stuffed bunny tightly, her expression unusually thoughtful. "What's on your mind, sweetheart?" Evelyn asked, brushing a strand of hair from Lily's face. "I was thinking—" Lily began hesitantly. "Do you think my mommy would have liked our snowman?" Evelyn paused, considering the question carefully. "I think she would have loved it," she said finally. "And I think she'd be so happy to see how brave and strong you are." Lily nodded slowly, seemingly reassured. Then, after a moment of silence, she added, "Do you think she watches us sometimes? Like from heaven?" Evelyn swallowed hard, touched by the innocence of the question. "I believe she does," she said softly. "And I think she's proud of both of us, for finding each other when we needed someone the most." Lily smiled, snuggling closer to Evelyn. "I'm glad you're my mom now." Those simple words struck Evelyn deeply, filling her with a sense of purpose she hadn't known she was missing. Becoming a mother hadn't erased the pain of her past losses or the challenges of her career, but it had given her a reason to keep moving forward, to embrace life fully and unapologetically. As the weeks turned into months, Evelyn continued to balance her roles as a doctor and a mother. While juggling surgeries and late-night emergencies wasn't easy, She found solace in knowing that Lily waited for her at home, ready with hugs and stories about her day. And though there were days when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, the love they shared made every challenge worth it. One spring afternoon, as Evelyn walked through the hospital corridors, she overheard two nurses talking about her. "Did you hear about Dr. Harper?" one asked. "She adopted that little girl she saved last year." "She seems so different now," the other replied. "Happier." Evelyn smiled to herself, realizing how true those words were. She wasn't just happier, she was whole. The walls she had built around her heart had crumbled completely, replaced by a foundation of love and trust. That evening, as Evelyn tucked Lily into bed, she kissed her forehead gently. "I love you, my sweet girl," she whispered. "I love you too, Mom," Lily murmured sleepily, clutching her bunny close. As Evelyn turned off the light and closed the door behind her, she paused for a moment, listening to the peaceful quiet of their home. Life hadn't turned out the way she had planned, but in many ways it was better. She had found meaning not just in saving lives, but in creating one, a life filled with laughter, connection, and unconditional love. For the first time in years, Evelyn felt truly alive, and as she stood there, bathed in the soft glow of the hallway light, she knew that this was exactly where she was meant to be.